Hello. How do you steal a multi-ton shipping container out of Europe's most heavily guarded port? You don't bring guns. You don't break the locks. You break reality.
Around 40 people have been arrested by Italian police in a major operation against the Camorra or
In
Naples.
2011, the oldest, bloodiest crime syndicate on Earth realized that fighting security was bad for business. So they stopped hiring hitmen and they started hiring hackers. For 2 years, hundreds of millions of euros worth of cargo simply vanished into thin air. There were no alarms, no dead guards. The syndicate understood, if you control the code, you control the cargo. The Port of Antwerp, Europe's largest second open vein. Every year, 200 million metric tons of steel and plastic flow through these arteries. It's a cathedral of logistics, a silent, automated beast that never sleeps. Settle into the North Sea fog, swallowing the rusted gantries one by one. The air here, a bitter lungful of ozone, diesel exhaust, and the sharp ancient rot of cold salt water. Churning against the concrete pylons and high above the oily black water, sodium lamps bleed sickly orange halos into the mist, illuminating an endless canyon of steel shipping containers, stacked like the tombs of forgotten giants. It was a place where human beings were reduced to shivering ghosts in high-vis jackets, entirely dwarfed by the groaning cranes and the relentless grinding of global commerce. A sterile, automated wasteland where everything had a price and a place where if you knew the right lines of code, you could make them vanish. You see the old world of iron and sweat, but that world is dead. The real port isn't made of just concrete anymore. It's made of database entries, zeros and ones. If you control the code, you control the cargo. We aren't talking about guys in baklava smashing windows. We're talking about a legendary, organized crime conglomerate. They didn't break into the port with guns. They broke in with silent keystrokes. Starting in 2011, port authorities started noticing something impossible. Cargo containers, massive multi-ton steel boxes, were vanishing into thin air. There were no cut padlocks, no dead guards, no alarms. The legitimate trucking companies would arrive to pick up their freight, only to be told by the computer system that they already had been picked up. Law enforcement and the freight companies were dumbfounded, but the architects behind it were a total mystery. Were they a state-sponsored cyber warfare unit? Or a new breed of digital pirate? To understand the ghost, we first have to understand the machine. The thieves didn't try to smash through the firewalls. They went spearfishing. They sent spearfishing emails to the port workers. Simple stuff. A normal-looking invoice email. Download your invoice. One click and the malware was in. But by June 2011, they got bolder. They physically breached the company's offices in Antwerp. They crawled underneath the desks and installed hardware keyloggers, tiny devices hidden inside power strips and USB cables. They can look like typical phone chargers, sitting between keyboards and the computer towers. Invisible to the software, undetectable by antivirus. For weeks, they recorded every keystroke. They captured administrator logins for the terminal operating systems. They could see where every container was. They knew which ones held bananas from Ecuador and which ones held timber from Brazil. And they knew exactly which ones were packed with cocaine. In the shipping world, a container is just a number. the computer says it's yours, it's yours. The hackers would locate containers filled with drugs. In the system, that container might be flagged for a customs inspection. The hacker simply deletes that flag. Then they generate their own PIN codes. At this time in the automated shipping world, that PIN code is the golden ticket. A driver simply pulls up to the gate, punches in the stolen code, and the crane lowers the container into his truck. The system logs it as a legitimate pickup. The driver tips his hat and drives away. But when Europe police finally traced the digital footprints back to the source, they didn't find a high-end tech syndicate. They found something much older, much bloodier. So who was this organization? The men moving the chess pieces weren't the hackers. They were the Italian Mafia, the Ndrangheta and the Camorra.
Led to the localization and arrest of 57 subjects, 3 fugitives localized in Colombia and in Spain.
And world level, it has repercussions because the Ndrangheta is one of the strongest organizations in the world.
Ndrangheta is a very insidious and hybrid threat.
Nascere una famiglia di 'ndrangheta è difficile perché la 'ndrangheta è un'etnia, è uno stato. Mentre comunque quella famiglia sta affrontando delle guerre, tu non puoi fare altro che crescere con l'istigazione all'odio, con l'istigazione alla violenza.
Traffic of narcotics, as well as many other activities, not only in Italy.
Non solo.
Ammazzare, ammazzare, ammazzare.
For decades, they moved cocaine the hard way: bribes, threats, and violence. But they realized that fighting port security was bad for business. Why fight the system when you could rewrite it? Let's be clear about who we're dealing with. The 'Ndrangheta hail from the toe of Italy's boot, Calabria. Unlike the Sicilian Mafia, they are built strictly on blood ties. You can't just simply join with an oath. You are born into it. By 2011, they control an estimated 80% of Europe's cocaine trade. At the time of this hack, their maritime logistics were being coordinated by powerful factions like the Pesci clan. Salvatore Pesci ran operations even from behind bars. He famously used Radio Olimpia, a local radio station that operated on unlicensed transmitter from premises in Pesci's fiefdom, Rosarno, to send coded messages. And fugitive brokers like Rocco Morabito, the cocaine king of Milan, who sourced the drugs directly from South American cartels. Then you have the Camorra, operating out of Napoli. They aren't a single family. They're a vicious, horizontal cluster of warring clans. During the time of the Antwerp hacks, the Northern European drug routes were heavily influenced by the Amato Pagano clan, a splinter faction that seized power in the mid-2000s. Before 2004, they didn't exist as an independent family. Rafael Amato and Cesare Pagano were high-ranking lieutenants within the massive Di Laurio clan, which ran the largest open-air drug market in Europe out of the Scampia neighborhood. But when the old boss went into hiding, his hot-headed son took over. He tried to centralize power and cut the profits of the older, experienced veterans. Rafael Amato refused to bow down. He fled to Spain and rallied a faction of loyalists, earning them the nickname the Spaniards. This sparked the first Scampia feud in 2004. It was a brutal, year-long civil war that left over 100 people dead. In the end, the Amato Pagano faction won. They violently seized control of the drug routes. They were young, ruthless, and flush with new cash. If the Amato Pagano were the violent street usurpers, the Secondigliano alliance was the corporate monopoly. Formed in the late 1980s, the alliance was a strategic pact between three massive Camorra families. The Licardi. General the Monkey Licardi, originally a lieutenant for the Giuliano clan, he broke away in the mid-1980s. Vincenzo Licardi, Gennaro's brother, managed street operations and logistics. Maria the godmother Licardi, she was the clan's key financial strategist. The Contini. Eduardo Angel-Face Contini revolutionized the Camorra's drug codes and racketeering methods. He was known as the business over bloodshed boss. Patrizio Bosti, Eduardo's brother-in-law, managed the street-level enforcement. Ciro Contini, Eduardo's nephew, an emerging figure in the 1980s who would later become a major player in the clan's drug trafficking pacts. The Malardo. Francesco Malardo. Francesco ruthlessly wiped out rival factions to take control of the Gugliano clan. Giuseppe Malardo, Francesco's younger brother, a regular blue-collar worker that eventually got pulled into the family business. Giuseppe dell'Aquila, a key founding member and violent enforcer who helped secure the clan's dominance. They realized that shooting each other in the streets was bad for business. By pooling their resources, they monopolized international drug trafficking, extortion, and illegal betting across the region. They acted as a supreme board of directors, and they were deeply sophisticated. When the founding male bosses were killed or thrown in prison, the leadership passed to a woman, Maria Licardi. Under her rule, the alliance became a financial empire. They laundered money through international real estate, they corrupted bank officials, they forged direct high-level pacts with South American cartels and the Calabrian Ndrangheta. They didn't just control the slums, they had their claws in the legitimate economy. These were the minds behind the Antwerp hacks. Syndicates with the brutal street-level power to move tons of cocaine, and the corporate foresight to hire mercenary hackers to gain silent access. So what about the hackers? Were the hackers made men? Did the Mafia have soldiers sitting in basements writing malware? No. The Italian syndicates treated the hackers exactly like they treat the men who pilot their speedboats, as disposable contractors. Court documents from the eventual investigation revealed that the hackers were Flemish and Dutch IT specialists. They were mercenaries. This is one of the biggest examples of crimes as a service. The Ndrangheta and the Camorra paid these tech-savvy associates hundreds of thousands of euros to build the digital infrastructure for the theft. The hackers provided the intelligence, the Mafia provided the drugs, the trucks, and the muscle. The IT guys kept their hands clean of the cocaine, and the Mafia kept their hands off the keyboards. It was a perfect symbiotic digital nightmare. It worked for 2 years. Tons of cocaine, hidden inside shipments of bananas from Ecuador and timber from Brazil. Banished from Antwerp and Rotterdam into the European underworld. It only unraveled in 2013 because the physical world caught up to the digital one. Shipping company noticed the container was missing before the legitimate driver had arrived. Police searched the offices, questioned the employees, and looked through the databases. But when they crawled under the desk, they found the dusty keyloggers blinking in the dark. It sparked a massive investigation, eventually rolling up into Operation Polino, which saw dozens of Ndrangheta bosses and their associates arrested across Europe.
The raids involved 200 officers in more than
Continuare a lavorare.
The Naples prosecutor says to work.
Operation Polino wasn't just a standard bust. It was a massive cross-border counterstrike.
Led to the localization and arrest of 57 subjects, 3 fugitives localized in Colombia and in Spain. Ndrangheta is a very insidious and hybrid threat.
The Naples prosecutor says to work constantly on the grounds means controlling the dynamics of the criminal groups operating on that territory.
It was a huge collaboration between Europol, Eurojust from the European Union, La Guardia di Finanza, Polizia di Stato, and the Carabinieri from Italy. The Federal Judicial Police from Belgium, the FIOD and the Dutch National Police from the Netherlands, and Germany's BKA. The Port of Antwerp tightened its security. They phased out PIN codes for biometrics and cryptography. The drugs successfully smuggled during the operation, combined with the final seizures, had an estimated street value of well over 100 million euros. That's over $117 million today. They stole over $117 million using just a cell phone charger. Operation Polino, which targeted the Ndrangheta grip on European ports, led to the arrest of 90 Mafia associates across Europe. With top bosses and brokers later receiving sentences ranging from 10 to 20 plus years for international drug trafficking and money laundering. The oldest criminal fraternities in the world prove they don't have to break down your door. They just need to hire someone to turn off the alarm from 1,000 miles away. Do me a favor, hit the like button. And if you ever find an abandoned phone charger at an airport or a restaurant, make sure you throw it in the trash. Stay safe and stay salty.
Appunto questa santa sera, nel silenzio della notte, sotto la luce delle stelle, nello splendore della luna, formo la Santa Cattedrale. Poi a nome di Garibaldi Mazzini della Marmora, con parola di uomo di umiltà, formo la Santa Società. Vita persona mia, giuro, di rinnegare tutto fino alla 7ª generazione umana, tutta la società criminale da me fino a oggi riconosciuta.